Hi folks, Florida Man here. Today we're going over a certain very unusual, very uncommon three-power alliance. As you may know, in diplomacy, one of the most feared alliances in the game is the Western Triple. If the Eastern powers see or hear that one is forming, they either have to resolve their collective differences and figure out some kind of defense, or get their affairs in order and get ready to disappear like the dinosaurs. So why isn't the reverse true? Why isn't there a famous or infamous Eastern Triple? A Russia-Austria-Turkey or RAT alliance, if you will, equally feared among the Western powers. Today, we're going over something a little unusual for this channel. An alliance that essentially isn't. A combination of powers that virtually never emerges and coalesces together to sweep the map early on. We'll discuss relations among the three powers, how they arrange themselves, and why they generally do not all work together, singing Kumbaya hand in hand, as well as what an Eastern Triple or RAT alliance would have to look like in order to be effective. So, unlike the West, the East really touches upon the affairs of four powers rather than three. Italy, in a substantial majority of cases, acts like an Eastern power rather than a Western power or some kind of a neutral that pivots between the two sides. And because it typically interferes in the Eastern Triangle rather than the Western Triangle, it makes the Eastern Triple or RAT a lot less viable than the Western Triple. I would argue this isn't necessarily a meta issue so much as a geographical feature of the classic diplomacy map. It's just much easier for Italy to act in the East than in the West, in part because Switzerland exists. Italy needs more fleets to attack France early on than it actually has, and attacking Germany is a fool's errand for reasons I've belabored in other locations. See my series on Basics of Italy, or any number of videos, frankly. So it's only natural for Italy to default to involvement in the East. The rest of the Eastern Triangle typically breaks down into either working with or attacking Austria. If Turkey gets eliminated because Russia and or Italy worked with Austria, then there are three powers remaining that have the ability to work together effectively if they choose to. That's why the Airhead Alliance works well. If Austria gets eliminated by Russia and Turkey working together, then you have a juggernaut. There aren't too many powers in the region at that point anyway. There are the correct number, 3. No matter what, once one power is eliminated, in the East there are 3 left. But one power being eliminated would typically rule out the Russia-Austria-Turkey alliance. Russia-Austria-Turkey could only happen in the early game if Russia, unusually and almost unheard of, left Austria and Turkey alone, and Austria and Turkey decided to take Italy out instead of attacking the Russia that was for some reason leaving them alone. I have never seen a game of diplomacy that I can recall where the Italian player is the first target for Austria and Turkey, rather than some other combination of ally and target than that. But that is probably what needs to happen to make the Eastern Triple happen, to make that a thing. So how does the Eastern Triple actually tend to function on the rare occasions when something like it actually forms? Well, it's usually a reaction to the West forming a Western Triple, or some other strong-seeming alliance. Some people call the Anglo-French alliance a Western juggernaut. I think that's a little bit overblown, but it is strong. So it's a reaction to some strong-seeming alliance that the Eastern powers more or less all agree they need to counter. That's it. It could be the Airhead Alliance that emerges from that, it could be the RAT Alliance, it depends on who looks strong, who's willing to agree, who's willing to involve themselves. It's just a practical ad hoc coalition, could be composed of any powers, except for the powers that are in the enemy alliance. It gets thrown together because the enemy was too strong for any of these powers to fight on their own. This means that it's not something anyone ever realistically considers as a threat, and with good reason. The meta, at least, has essentially eliminated this from the set of available options. People just don't consider it seriously, in the East as well as the West. If you're Austria, Russia, or Turkey, and you proposed it to one of your neighbors, they would just think you were an inexperienced player or a liar, and they would decide they preferred to work with the other power rather than you most of the time. If you proposed it to both of them at once, together, they would probably both conspire against you. God help you if you propose it and you're Austria. This alliance does have a lot of potential on paper, though. It would help Turkey out by giving him an accelerated route through the Mediterranean and into Italy, increasing his chances of ultimately getting over the stalemate line. It would allow Russia to go full northern opening strategy and leave the south mostly alone and almost unguarded. Austria would get to avoid being dogpiled and get some spoils from the conquests of both Italy and Germany that would inevitably ensue if this alliance was actually played out. I think there are actual logical reasons why this alliance could work, but most players won't go out on a limb and try something as unusual as this one. So I suggest that someone give this a try, see if you can make it happen, and report back to us. The proposal might be easier to make if you're Russia or Turkey, because if you make it as Austria, you just look like an easier target. I take no responsibility, however, if you get immediately invaded once you've made the suggestion, no matter which power you're playing. I hope you've enjoyed this alliance overview and found it helpful. If so, I hope you'll like, subscribe, and check out more Florida Man Diplomacy videos. Please join me in thanking the folks whose names are now on screen who have gone above and beyond to support the channel by either contributing to the Patreon or writing subtitles. And feel free to join them in providing that extra support. The patrons get access to a whole lot of diplomacy podcasts that have never been made available to anyone except for through Patreon. There are dozens and dozens of them at this point. And they also get early access to all YouTube content, which I think is worth $1 a month. We also appreciate comments, which boost the videos in the algorithm and make it more likely that fellow diplomacy fans will discover Florida Man Diplomacy. Till next time, Florida Man, out.